My name's Mark Fountain and I am the host of Let's Talk, so welcome to my podcast. Let's Talk is a podcast about ordinary people with extraordinary stories. But before we get into these stories, please do us a favour and just hit the subscribe button for me. It really helps the channel out a lot. So without further ado, I'd really like to welcome my guest for today on Let's Talk. B.
Hi.
Honestly, thank you so much for taking the time out to come in on this show. I met you, so I tend to most guests I have on here, I always go, I met you, it was at a networking event. But I actually met you at a networking thing, didn't I?
Absolutely, yes.
Something called the Entrepreneurs Circle.
Mm-hmm.
I only went to one, but obviously you stood out because of your bright hair, bright personality, and you had these amazing, colourful dress on as well. And to be honest, you was the only one that spoke to me.
Well, I suppose if you want to put it in that respect, there's not many of them, some of them spoke to me, but it's an interesting group of people, I think is the word I would say. And sometimes I felt very much like a fish out of water. So maybe you and I just clicked because of that reason.
Possibly. But we got talking after or just before the meeting about certain stuff, and I don't know, you seem like such an interesting person. I was like, mate, I do this podcast. Please come on because you're super bubbly. Your whole aura of yourself is just loud, big personality. So I was like, come on, please. And here we are.
Yeah.
Many months later.
It has taken a bit of time.
It's taken, but you're here.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful. And I've got to say, thanks for the Easter bunnies.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I'm so grateful for you having me here. It's fabulous. And I'm going to enjoy every moment.
I hope
so. I hope you do.
I really hope so. Otherwise you're going to go away and go, that was shit. Never again. B, how did it all start for you? Where did you grow up?
Okay, so I was born in Thorrington near Brighton in Essex, and I am one of 3 girls, youngest, quite a big age gap between me and my sisters, 6 and 9 years.
Your poor father.
Oh, he loved it. He loved it.
Girls are such hard work.
I totally disagree with you. Sorry. No, we were, mum and dad. Nice family for a while. I don't remember it, but we lived next door to my cousins.
Wow.
My sisters definitely remember it, but they moved sort of when I was quite young, so I don't remember it so much. But we had lovely neighbours. It was rural, and it was that kind of lifestyle where I'd pop next door and she'd do me, she'd make cakes, and she was a fabulous woman. May, her name was, and she was older lady, and she'd been through the war and run a guest house in Kelvedon, and so I was always around there for food, and she used to knit my Cindy clothes for me.
Cindy?
Cindy.
Bloody
Cindy
hell.
and Pippa.
Yeah.
And that was, we were close family, all got on, obviously bickered as girls, of course you do. It was quite idyllic, really, I suppose. Mum worked, but she worked at the farm, and she used to take us with her in the holidays. I was a real tomboy as well, which you will not believe, I know, looking at me today, but I was. Everybody knew everyone else because it was small.
What was school like? Did you enjoy school?
Loved school. I absolutely loved school. Till I got maybe to teenage years. But in my younger days, loved school. I always went to school. When my mum had to go up for her first, like parents' evening when you're really young, they did say to my mum that they thought I was a bit strange because when I stand in the dinner queue, I won't eat peas or carrots, and I always ask for broccoli and cabbage. But my mum worked on a farm, a vegetable growing farm. So part of her weekly wage was a vegetable box. And that's what we were used to. So, and my mum cooked from scratch, everything. She was a fabulous cook. So, but they had to because they didn't have a lot of money. So you had to make things stretch, that's how it was. But we never knew that. It was never a big thing, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's too convenient now, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the problem because everything's convenient. So everything's boxed out, everything's ready-made for you. We are a huge throwaway society. It's a joke.
Terribly. And doesn't taste anything like homemade. My mum used to make crisps for us.
Wow.
Literally, she couldn't afford crisps. So she had the potatoes from the farm and she made them. And that's, that's what happened. The one thing is my dad's job changed when I was quite young. So he was an engineer, ex-army, and then engineer. And he moved to the Daily Mail in London. He was a print press engineer there. And it brought in more money, obviously. So that allowed us a little bit more freedom. And I love dance. I've always loved dancing. So I did ballet, tap, jazz, did gymnastics at school, all that kind of stuff, really. That was me.
Yeah.
A bit airy-fairy, up in the air a lot of the time.
Love that. So when you left school, what sort of work did you go into?
Well, yeah, that was the problem. So growing up in school as well, I did amateur dramatics, and that was it. That was going to be my life. I was going to be an actress. Simple and straightforward as that. I'm going to be an actress, I'm going to be a singer, and I never ever had that, like girls go through and boys do it, I'm going to be a doctor, and then I'm going to be this, and then I'm going to be no, right from young, I'm going to be an actress. That's it. And then when I turned 16, and my parents, I love them dearly, but parents, without realising it, can give you some limiting beliefs about yourself, but only because they're trying to keep you safe, okay? So when I told my mum what I was going to be, she went, that's not going to happen, is it? Let's be serious. It's only rich people that get to do that. It's not a job.
As blunt as that?
Yes, yeah. We're pretty open-spoken in our family, to be fair. So, yes, she just said, that's not going to happen. She says, not that you're not good enough. I'm not saying that. She said, but it's not a real job. We can't afford it. We don't have the money to send you to drama school in London.
Interesting. It must be a generational thing that they see that as that ain't a real job. I'm sure when I started my company, Fountain Photos, years ago, my dad always thought the same thing. He's like, how are you going to earn money taking pictures? Yeah. I said, watch me, Dad. Honestly, people pay for this.
Exactly. But it is strange because then it was very much... And I think it is a generational thing. As a female at school, I was sort of almost taught that I would become a secretary or a nanny or something along those lines. To actually say that you didn't want to do that and you wanted to do something completely different was unheard of, really. So that was my mum. My dad, I don't remember if he had an opinion or not, if I'm being honest with you. He's a woman, my mum was a pretty formidable woman. So,
plus he had 3 daughters. I'm surprised he got a word in edgeways.
Yeah, he did have 3 daughters. And it was really difficult for me because my eldest sister, Mandy, is really bright, naturally bright. And she'd done her O-levels and her A-levels and went on to work in asset management, and now she's got letters after her name, etc. So and then Nikki was more like me, larger than life personality, and she was a fabulous secretary, but she was always going to be a family lady. She always wanted to get married and have children, and that was my biggest problem. I didn't want to be in an office, and I didn't want to be married and have children. So it was like I just felt like I didn't really fit in. I was either before my time, maybe, or I don't know. It was a weird time for me, and I ended up in Marks and Spencer's.
Oh wow, really?
Yes. So I'd done YTS. I'd done a 2-week work experience there. Yeah. They were offering YTS schemes. I applied and I got it.
You're the second person I've had on here who's talked about YTS.
Oh.
Love it. They should bring it back.
Well, you say that. But originally when I did work experience, I decided I wanted to go to an estate agent's. Don't ask me why. And
I'm not going to ask you why.
I hated every moment of it. They didn't teach me anything apart from how to make tea and coffee.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah.
So halfway through, I actually rang the school and said, my mum said she's not going back. She's not learning anything. That's not on, kind of thing. And so they moved me to Marks and Spencer's, who had spaces. And that's how I got to know Marks and Spencer's. That's how I got the offer to go in for an interview. And there was a lot of us went, over 100 people, and 2 of us got the positions.
Was you into clothes? Was you bothered about the way you looked and stuff like that back then?
So my first recollection of being physically aware of myself, I was about 11 years old.
Yeah.
Now I've grown up in a family where my mum and my eldest sister are quite slim, and never really had to worry. My middle sister, Nikki, like me, we take after my dad, and she was put on a diet 8 years old. So I remember diets.
8 years old?
8 years old. They took her tonsils out because she'd had like tonsillitis so many times in the space of a short time.
Yeah.
She'd lost so much weight she couldn't eat, etc. They took her tonsils out, and then because she started eating normally, they decided she needed to go on a diet. This was the doctors. This is what they did then. So for as long as I can remember, diet's been a thing. I remember turning 11, I was at my grandma's, and I started my womanly things, and within weeks I had boobs and a butt and things I didn't expect, and all the girls around me looked just tall and straight and flat.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, God, I'm fat, I need to diet. And I was 11 years old, and I remember that vividly now.
And you think that was influenced by your sister being put on diets?
Absolutely,
wow.
Absolutely.
Can I ask, has it affected your sister a lot in life?
My sister's no longer with us.
I'm so sorry, B. I didn't realise.
Yeah, so maybe we'll come on to that.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't mind talking about
definitely.
it. That's absolutely fine. It's a little bit sort of for later down the road.
Yeah.
But my answer to that would be yes, absolutely. And it probably bonded us the closest.
Sure.
Because it was something that we just did together.
Yeah.
All the time, looking for the next quick fix, the next, I've done them all. I could list them. And it also added to my size, and I wasn't even overweight then. I really wasn't. It just felt like I was. And like not following sort of my dream either. Just now I realise it's just instilled this thing that I've lived with for way too long, that I just never was good enough.
Right, yeah.
Not good enough. I don't fit in.
Had anybody actually told you that? Or is this what you've manifested?
No, this is sort of what's happened in my head, I suppose, when I look at, my eldest sister's really bright, my middle sister's the family girl, and I don't fit into any of that, and I'm not going to be good enough to be an actress, and, I'm overweight, and and I suppose what then impounds that is everything you look at when you become 15, 16 years old. It's all about going out and getting dressed up and buying clothes, and I was about a size, 16, 18, which is not huge, but it still made life really difficult then. Back then, size 16 to 18 clothes were classed as big. So you were like, no offence, Evans or someone like that, who dressed my grandma, for want of a better word. And so you were made to feel even less worthy. And it is still happening now, which is horrendous. It still happens now. So, I suppose the one thing I threw myself into was every job that I ever did, I did to my utmost best, because I needed to know that I was worth it. I needed to know that I could do it. Yeah. So my life started in Marks and Spencer's, and I loved it. Their training scheme was amazing. It was a family-owned company still then. It's very different now. But it was fabulous, and I met some really great friends, and just really, really good time, and then the only problem at that time was a lot of people stayed there a long time, so the chance of promotion was quite low. So I decided at about, I think I was 18, when I decided to go for a job as a sort of deputy manager in a little boutique in Colchester. And I did the job. I can't say I loved it. It was very different. I was used to being surrounded by people. Boutiques are much smaller. So it was very different. And it wasn't fast paced like I'd been used to. But it was another world to experience. A different world to experience. And I didn't stay there all that long. And then I moved on to, the next move for me actually moved me away from here. And I moved
from
to
Essex.
I moved to Grays.
Oh, yeah.
I met my first husband.
Yeah.
Just before that, he became my husband, and I was only 19 at this point. And yeah, I moved away, met my first husband on the rebound of a not very nice relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just really kind and really nice. And yeah, and I think that's probably what I needed at that point.
So the not very nice relationship, was it quite abusive?
Controlling.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sometimes abusive, but mostly controlling. And also at the same time, my parents divorced after 27 years of marriage.
Bloody hell.
And it was a real big shock to all of us. You don't expect that to happen.
No.
I always thought my parents were happy. I mean, now maybe I'm older, I can see the cracks. But yes, and I think part of getting away was running away.
Yeah, definitely.
Not wanting to deal with
the
reality of it all.
Yeah. So your first husband, was he quite a safe man? 9 to 5, very sort of nice and safe to be around.
How do I explain Adrian? He was so kind.
Yeah.
Such a nice, been brought up really well. Nice, loving family, one of 2 brothers. And he was a little bit of a wide boy to in some ways, but not in that way. And yeah, he chased me. I didn't want to know at first because, you know, when you come out of relationships like that, you're very wary and stuff. Yeah. And he chased me. And in the end, as my cousin, he said to me, "Oh, just go for it. Just go out with him. You never know, you know." And I did, and we got on. And yeah, I suppose that's, you know, and then I moved to where he lived. And I took a job at a place called Nevada Bob's, which is a golf chain of stores. Well, they were franchises.
Yeah.
So I worked in Lakeside. And the guy who owned it was incredibly male chauvinistic and didn't want a woman, didn't see why he needed a woman. So I said to him, "Take me on 3 months trial and I will double your clothing sales." Because I was young and cocky.
Yeah.
And he did, and I did, and the rest is history. But my husband was the manager there. So we married when he was 21, I was 22, and had a house in Grays. We travelled all over. So he opened other franchises and we went all over to help set things up. So first year I was married, I worked in Bristol Monday to Friday. I only saw my husband on weekends. Second year he went to Slough. So it was, yeah, we were all over the place. Mm. But it worked. Until it didn't work when we had to be together all the time. I'm
going to say it probably worked because you wasn't with each other.
Correct, yes. Yeah. And I think then my role progressed. So we moved house. So we moved into Kent. We lived in Sevenoaks and then in Maidstone. But I worked in Godalming in Surrey. Mm-hmm. So I worked at head office. So I did a lot of the buying and the sort of coordinating the shops and what they were going to have in and what they were going to put in the windows, that sort of stuff, really. Because at Marks and Spencer's I'd learned everything, but one of the parts I'd really learned was window dressing, which is just one of my most favourite things, really. It's creative and I'm a creative girl. So,
I can see.
Yeah.
Very, extremely creative.
Yeah, that's only come out later in life. I was very much a conformist in my younger years.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think we all tend to go through that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was me. And then I was married to him for 7 years and 10 years, like 10 years till I got divorced, but 7 years before I left. But the Belinda that you see now is not the Belinda that was then. And he must have had a hell of a time being married to me, bless him. I do feel quite sorry for him. Because there was no mid-Belinda. I was either up there or down there. A lot. I would, I'd go on shopping trips, couldn't buy anything, come home and sit on my bed and sob my heart out. Mm. And my family and my friends all saw me as the life and soul of the party, which I was. And underneath, it was just like, it's just a big act.
Just pure masking.
Just pure masking, just this really unsecure, unhappy person who just felt she wasn't worth anything and didn't like the way I looked and I was fat and ugly, and I wasn't an achiever. I wasn't anything.
What sort of age was you when
my 20s?
In your 20s.
Yeah. And then I tried to take my own life, and I stopped myself, and then I realised that I needed to do something, that this wasn't normal. And obviously I was away from my family. My family all still lived down here. And but my sister knew. We were very close. We knew everything about each other. And I sought counselling, my own counselling actually. I didn't go to the doctors. I felt too embarrassed to go to the doctors even.
I think that's quite common with a lot of people, isn't it?
Especially at that age,
yeah.
And so I just decided that I needed counselling, and I tried one and didn't, you've got to find the right fit. And I did find the right fit, and it was a 2-year journey I had to confront some demons, and also not just my own demons, but my dad particularly. The relationship with my dad hadn't been great. So, and it brought me to a place where I realised that I didn't love Adrian like that. I loved him, but I wasn't in love with him. And if I stayed, I would make him miserable. So I broke his heart, and that made me feel even more guilty. But I'd done the right thing, and I decided it was over. And I left, and I was going to live with my mum, who was her boyfriend at the time, which filled me with dread.
Yeah, I bet.
And I ended up moving in with my now husband, but he wasn't my husband. There was nothing then. We were just friends. But I've known him since I was 14 years old. So he offered me a room. He was going through a divorce, needed income in his house. I took the room, so I didn't have to go home.
A bit of a blessing in disguise, that, I guess. Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm a great believer of that. And things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Yeah.
You just have to be aware of them.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, and that was my moment when I came back here. So my life up until that point hadn't been awful.
But a bit up and down,
sad,
a bit turmoil.
Very sad underneath it all. And, yeah, I mean, obviously counselling moved me forward. A big gap. Never solved my body issues, but it definitely made me more aware of my other issues from my childhood and around my family and parents and stuff like that. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a bad upbringing, nothing like that. It was just...
Do you know what? It doesn't have to be a bad upbringing. It doesn't have to be full of abuse. It doesn't have to be full of like absolute terrible stuff going on all the time. It's nothing to do with that, is it? It's how you take it as a person and what happens to you from that. You know, going through a parent breakup, I have no idea what that's like. My kids know what that's like because I've split from their mum, but I have no idea. My parents were married forever. I only recently, my father died 5 years ago, and we found a load of diaries and other bits. I didn't realise how unhappy my dad was. Yeah. I had no idea, because he masked it. He kept it from us. It's none of our business, you know. That's how people were back then. You know what I mean? And
you were seen and not heard.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, there was a definite part of that in my. You know, we were good girls. You know, we were brought up. My dad's ex-army, so you can imagine it was strict, but
respectful,
absolutely. And I still have the utmost respect for my parents. Now, in a different way, maybe
of
to
course.
them, because as you get older, you see their flaws.
But
so for that period of time, I was absolutely. My parents were God. Everything they said went. You know, and I did. I was the youngest, and I was spoilt by my sisters because they loved having a baby sister. And I pushed the boundaries. I was not the easiest of child.
Yeah.
You know, I pushed the boundaries all the time. You know, I was always being grounded. And
I got grounded once for the 6 weeks holidays.
Yeah.
And on the first day, I pissed my mum off so much. She told me to get out.
I wish it was that easy in my house. So honestly, I say my dad was strict. My mum was pretty blooming strict as well. So yeah.
Just to interrupt you for a second, I just wanted to tell you quickly about our sponsor for the podcast, Fountains Media. Fountains Media is a creative content first media agency. We create videos, we do your photography for you, we've got a CAA approved drone pilot, and we offer full social media management. So you don't have to ever worry about when or what to post. Anyway, look, sorry to interrupt your podcast, but if you do want to check them out, check out all their socials. That is Fountains Media. If you don't mind, can we talk about your sister? What happened with your sister?
Yeah, so where are we? We are in 2023. My sister died in 2021, January 2021. So I moved back here, and obviously I've been back here now since 2001. Mm-hmm. And got really close to my sister again. She lived just down the road, and she went through a breakup as well, marriage breakup, and I'm very, very close to my niece and nephew. So, and then she remarried. So a lot's gone on between us in the time that I came back here in 2001 to when she passed in 2021. So it was a really, really close relationship. And what happened was we went into, as you know, we had COVID. My sister was very bad asthmatic. So from day one, she'd been told to isolate. So she worked from home. And that was absolutely fine. But it wasn't fine because, as we all know, as the time went on, I mean, the first lockdown, a lot of people enjoyed it. Mm. I mean, I personally didn't, but a lot of people did. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But a lot of people did. But then when the continual lockdowns came and when people weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, the government did a lot of scaremongering. And my sister watched everything religiously. And so they weren't stopping people who weren't conforming, because that's what they were trying to do, was get them to conform. What they were actually doing was scaring the life out of already vulnerable people, of all ages. And that's exactly what happened. And I saw my sister in 2020, I saw her 3 times in 1 year. And one of the times was in the November, because I had to take her and her cat to the emergency vets because her husband was at work. Mm-hmm. And we weren't supposed to be together at that point. And we both wore masks and we sat in the car for an hour and a half while the cat was in the vets because you weren't allowed to go in then. And she said to me, "If I catch this, I will die." And I said to her, "Please don't say that. Of course you won't. It will be absolutely fine." And then we planned Christmas together, and then it was called off. And she wouldn't go against the rules. I totally get it. Although hindsight's a wonderful thing sometimes. And so we didn't do Christmas. I saw her for 3 minutes on my doorstep on Christmas Eve. She wouldn't come in. We swapped presents. I took Dad and Pam. And she had her children because they were living away from home then. So, mm-hmm. And that was our Christmas. And then we spoke over Christmas, everything. We were very jokey. We had that personality between us. We could say, honestly, really stupid things and find them really funny. You had to be there. You have to be part of our, yeah. We've got that sign up that says, as far as everybody else knows, we're a normal family. So that was what we were like. One of the last things she brought me was a coaster that said, "If you fall over, don't worry, I'll help you up once I finish laughing." And that is just what we were like. Yeah. That is our group. So in the January, she phoned me in a state of panic. Her husband is a train driver, classed as a key worker at that point, had gone to work. Now, usually that wouldn't be a problem because they don't mix with passengers and stuff. But someone had gone into work having had a test but not waited for the results. He came home, didn't know about it at that point, obviously, only found out afterwards. And the next day he was quite unwell, and he had contracted COVID. Mm. So she isolated him in the bedroom and whatever. And she rang me and she said, I'm going to catch it. I know. Please don't do this, Nick. Please don't let your mind's the most powerful thing you've got. Please don't let this happen, And, don't go in that downward spiral. And I tried to lift her up and joke with her and laugh with her. On the Thursday, so it was the Tuesday and Thursday, she rang me. She said, I've got it. It's okay, look, do this, do that. But, what you all do at that time. I'm here. You want me to come over? No, you're not coming over. I don't want you to catch anything, because I'd have done anything for her at that point, in all honesty. And then on the Saturday, I had a phone call from my husband to say she was being taken to hospital because she couldn't maintain her oxygen levels. And she went into hospital on the Saturday. We had funny conversations, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then she was taken to ICU. I know it probably sounds a bit weird, but I wasn't overly concerned at that point, because ICU, actually, you get much better care because you're more one-on-one sort of kind of care. And we were told, or we had I think it was my niece who rang me, actually. She said that they'd taken Mum's phone away because she needed to rest, so we have to ring the ward. We ring in the ward. I think they rang 3 times a day to find out exactly what was going on. And it was all okay. It all sounded like it was okay. They'd until the Thursday, and they phoned to say they'd put her on a nebulizer. If I'd have been sensible at that point, I would have probably understood the enormity of that. I went to bed that night. My phone rang at 6 o'clock in the morning. She died at 3:30 on her own. No one with her. And the last time I saw her was 3 minutes on my doorstep at Christmas. You never get over it. You just live with it. And you learn to understand, or I make peace with it in my head in various ways. But at the time, I screamed. Literally screamed. And then I had to ring my dad. He rang my mum, my sister's husband, Jason. And I rang my dad. And I have never heard my dad cry. And that was awful. And then you go into overdrive. It's like we're in a pandemic. We can't have a proper funeral. Can't have anything afterwards. This is a girl who had so many friends, larger than life like me. What do you do? So I vowed to make it the best possible funeral it could be. My mum lived in Spain. She did at that point. My sister lives in Scotland. Poppy lived in Birmingham. That's my niece. Ryan lived locally. So a week later, we went to a park. I walked around this park and talked. We were all in shock. It was all just awful. And I remember my niece saying to me, she's never going to see me get married. She's never going to see me have my first child. And I said, I'm here. That's what I'm here for. Because for a long time I wanted to be with her. I'd have done anything to be with her. But I'm supposed to be here. She wants me here to look after her children. And my dad, who's really not very well, and all of that. So we walked around this park and we talked about what we could do. And we did Zoom calls with the undertakers, and my brother-in-law fell apart. He blamed himself.
But do you know what, B? Is if it's not hard enough that you've lost a family member, you can't even say goodbye properly in this time. No. It's looking back on it now, it's absurd.
Absolutely. You can't even believe that we've lived through it, really.
As well, you can't even really believe now in 2023, it's gone. No. There's no testing. It's like it's disappeared. Obviously, it hasn't.
No.
But it's like none of that happened.
I know.
And it's just left a whole whirlwind of shit for everybody to pick up. People like yourselves that are still mourning for family members.
Yeah.
And you couldn't even do anything about it. Go and see them, sit with them, whatever. That's all forgotten about now, isn't it?
It is. And I think the hardest thing I had to come to terms with was, did she know I loved her? I wasn't messaging her. I wasn't with her. I couldn't hold her hand. And you know what? I've never, ever, I lost my grandparents when I was 20 and 22. I haven't lost anybody since then. So this was, to lose my sister was huge. And I've never wanted to see a dead body, right? Never. I didn't go and see my nan and granddad, didn't need to, wanted to remember as they were. But I had to go because I just didn't believe she'd gone. I just couldn't compute that. Even the day I walked in that room, I honestly thought it was, I just waited for her. I thought she was going to sit up and go, huh? Like she would have done. Obviously she didn't. And did it make it any better? I don't know if it did or not, but you know, it was the right decision at the time. And then we just went on autopilot, literally autopilot. I organised with my niece and like input from nephew and my brother-in-law, but he did fall apart, and I totally get it. She was his world, his absolute world. And we just went on autopilot and arranged the best funeral that we could have. And it was so hard to choose who we invited. 20 people. I mean, it's just nothing. And we picked out all these beautiful slides of her to be played in there. Obviously, it was all like broadcast, so people could watch from home. I wrote a poem. My sister did the eulogy. And she came down from Scotland. She drove. There was no wild horses wouldn't have kept her away. And we did what we could. We did the best we could.
I'm sure she would have absolutely loved it and been super proud of you all.
Yeah, I hope so.
Definitely.
So yeah, that was, and then the shop reopened, and I was thrown back into that world of, oh my God, my business, because I'd been scrabbling to save my business for 2 years. And I felt numb, I think, for a long time. And then the Christmas came, and then the year of our anniversary, and I started to slip. Quite a slippery slope. I ended up at the doctor's, and they put me forward for counselling, but you have to wait. And at the time I couldn't afford it. The business had been earning nothing, so I couldn't have afforded to have paid for it, so I had to wait. And yeah, it was a dark place, very dark.
I mean, the system's failed you quite a lot, hasn't it? To be honest, when someone genuinely needs help within our NHS system, and I'm not blaming any of the people that actually work in the NHS is a business, and I think it's run really shit. Could be run a lot better.
Absolutely.
You know, they failed you, really.
The government failed us.
Yeah, the government have failed you.
I know they were dealing with something they didn't understand.
Bollocks.
But I think they knew a lot about it before we
Definitely, they knew loads about it, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but I listen to a lot about, what's happened with COVID, and obviously it affected everybody's business. It affected everybody's lives. You know, at the time it was going on, we was watching the news thinking, fuck me, is this for real? Because this seems like a TV show.
But there got a point where I just didn't watch it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Way before my sister passed, that when they closed us in the November, I was beyond furious.
Yeah.
Right, beyond furious. My busiest month of the year, right? And I was beyond furious. And I just decided that I was not going to watch it anymore. The only thing I did was listen to what was important for my business. Okay.
Same as us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of everything else, I'm sorry, I'm going to swear, fuck it.
Yeah, right? I agree.
I am not going to live my life. This is life. You know, if I've got to live in listening to this crap in this depressed state, where you've got things like, you have to wear a mask into the restaurant, but when you sit down, you can take it off.
Yeah, what's the fucking point of putting it on to come in?
So COVID and curfew at 10 o'clock, because COVID knows, it has to do everything before 10, or it knows it can only get you when you're sitting down and rest. It's just bullshit, absolute bullshit. And some of it just didn't, and I just, if you've got any enlightening if you had any enlightening, you realised.
100% there was a bigger picture going on in the background. And this was something to keep us occupied and quiet and out of the way while some fucking massive, dramatic thing was going on somewhere else in the world, you know, that none of us could see or have anything to do with. It's crazy to think, you know, I sat my girls down and said to them, I said, you're sitting through history right now.
Absolutely.
I said, your kids will be talking about, you know, when the whole world locked down. It weren't just a few counties, the whole world shut down.
I know.
Never seen anything like it.
No, I know.
And we never will see anything like it. You know, it's crazy. So listen, I'm sorry for all the pain and loss and everything that you've had to go through, but I feel like you've been completely let down and the system has failed you, you know?
Yeah, but the other side of things is if she'd have come through this, she'd have probably had long-term COVID because of her...
Definitely.
And she was already finding life a little bit more difficult than some of us. So in a way, I think it was her time to take her away from the pain. And that's the only way I can reconcile it in my brain, is it's because I wouldn't want her to live in pain like that. I think my biggest thing, though, is I wish I'd started my journey to where I am today, and that started way before Nikki died. I could have maybe helped her more. But it's no good. You can't go backwards. You can only go forward.
Of course, you're not in control of what's happened. You're only in control of what's happening in the future. You know?
Correct. What's happening in this very moment and where you take yourself. So, yeah, that was... Yeah.
So I'm going to move us forwards, yeah? So you own a boutique, Bee's Boutique.
I do.
But you are into something very new at the moment.
Which part of new?
Which I love.
Okay. So basically, as I said to you, I've lived a large part of my life in body hate. Real hate for real parts of my body.
See, this was a huge thing we spoke about at this networking thing. And I said to you, you should put yourself out there. Come on, who cares? Who cares what anybody else thinks about you, the way you look, the way you are? Who gives a shit? Put yourself out there. And like a year and a half later, I start seeing these pictures of B and I said, good for you. Fucking well done for doing it.
Yeah.
Explain what you're doing, B.
Okay, so I have become a body confidence coach. Okay, so I trained last year and I put myself through hell to do it because at the same time as I trained, my counselling started for the grief of my sister. And also my dad got taken into, he broke his hip and he was in hospital for 3 months, nearly died twice. Yeah. So I was then training all through that and I refused to stop training because it was almost like my escape. But because I loved it so much, I found a whole new world that I'd started my journey when I opened the boutique. That was my turning point because my husband had a very serious accident in 2009. And I was told he may not survive the night. He had 2 bleeds on the frame, fractured skull. And I was like, oh my God. So I had 2 years of recovery with him. I came away from the corporate job that I was doing 24/7. I mean, it literally was a 24/7 job and it was in the diet industry. Right. So, yeah, so it's quite interesting. Anyway, and then I came away from that and then at 40, I was really unwell myself and discovered I was going through menopause, which is pretty...
Wow, that's early.
Really early.
Yeah.
Having had no children. So that was a real... Yeah, and apparently now I read sort of, obviously I've done research and stuff on it. And it was very matter-of-factly told to me by a doctor, in a surgery by a male doctor as well. And I was like, pardon? I don't know what you're talking about. But apparently when if you have a massive shock, if your body goes into like a massive shock, it can bring this on. And I know it was when they told me that because my second husband, Sean, is my childhood sweetheart. And I love him with all my heart. And if I'd have lost him then, God, I don't know. Yeah. And I honestly thought I was going to lose him. So I think that's what happened. And then we had 2 years of recovery with him, which was hard work. It changed him. Head injuries change people. Yeah, they do. Really do. Yeah. Change personalities. And then I found out I was going through menopause and I was like, oh my God. And it was horrendous. it was horrendous to try and find a solution. And also, I know already that I already knew there was a history of osteoporosis in my family and osteoarthritis, which, so there was me going, oh, I'll go through it naturally. And there's a doctor going, you won't, because basically your body isn't, you'll start having, osteoporosis probably mid to late 40s and, all these things. So obviously then it ensues that you have to find balances with HRT and, oh God, everything else. So that went on for a long time. And it made me realise, that whole area made me realise that all I'd ever thought about my body was its physical look, not what was going on inside me.
Yeah, sure.
Not who I was. So I started my journey then, I think. Opened the boutique because I was fed up of not being able to buy clothes. Absolutely fed up to the back teeth of not being able to buy clothes that I like as well. I'm a little bit unique, but not all my stuff is like that. I'm aware I have other customers. So that started my journey, really. And then pandemic hit. And I had a message from Karen in the first pandemic when I'd moved my mother-in-law in because she'd just lost her husband. And also my stepson moved in, never having lived with us. So that was all very interesting. I think is a word I'd use, interesting. And my colleague who I work with, Karen, my manager, she said to me, you need to go on video. You need to get yourself out there. People need to see you, need to hear you. We need to keep this business in the forefront of people's minds. And I was like, don't be daft, I'm not doing it. She said, you are. She said, I don't care how you do it, you do it. So started videos at home. Oh my God, what a performance. A performance in so many ways, because I re-recorded until they're absolutely perfect. Obviously, I now know that is not the way to do things.
No, you probably don't give a shit now.
And I was trying to do it whilst I had my mother-in-law there, my stepson there, trying to get peace and quiet. Oh, it was just the funniest. It was almost hysterical. But I did it. And I was so worried. I said to her, what about if I get nasty comments? She said, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's,
I think there's a golden rule with when you put yourself on a pedestal. So putting yourself online in front of a camera or whatever, not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to be into you or whatever. No. There's this golden rule. Don't read the comments.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what she said to me. I'll manage it, because she managed the social media anyway. You just do it.
Yeah.
And I did. To the point, I think 6 months or a year later, I was in a swimsuit. And I think that really started making me realise, do you know what? This body's bloody amazing. It's got me exactly where I am, And the other thing is, it's just like, if you recognise that, you actually treat it much better. But it takes years to undo diet mentality, years of good and bad foods, and it's just, and the whole lot is awful. It's a really bad industry in its own way, that
I know
it makes millions of pounds off the back of people's misery. I'm sorry. And yes, we all need to take, I am not anti-health in any way, shape or form, right? Not at all. But we don't all fit into a BMI scale. Because do you know who made the BMI scale? A scientist. A male scientist for the government to understand how obese the population was. I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know, really, doesn't it? So, so I that happened. And that's where I felt like, so my sister was on a diet the week before she died. Having been on a diet from 8 years old, she died at 54. I mean, that just is crazy. A life lived in body shame for no reason.
It's mad that it is recognised, but it's not recognised enough to be able to educate people better with these shitty fad diets that are there.
Quick fixes, all of that kind of thing.
So we're like Hetty and I are mad, like runners and advocates for fitness and good lifestyle.
Absolutely.
But it ain't about 6-week challenges or like, I hate to name shame some people, Slim Fast, and fucking Weight Watchers and things like that. It's all bullshit. All of it's bullshit, because you can't do that. If your genetic makeup is one way, you're not going to fucking change that, are you, to make it another way? Don't matter what you do. All
and
you're going to do
those
is
diets will actually ruin your metabolism over time as well. So
exactly,
it's,
yeah. And it actually makes, I think, that makes you mentally worse than what you were when you fucking started.
I think that's come on the back of, I really do think that's come on the back of my sister's death, because I want to make a difference. My boutique makes a difference, right? We are a hub. We're not just a boutique, right? We have women coming in who want to, share things with, who are upset, who are happy, who, and it is a hub, okay? We don't just sell them clothing, but of course we want them to go out feeling fabulous about themselves. And I think I really realised over the last few years how ageing women particularly are so down on themselves. And there's very little in the media that bigs us up as we get older, okay? There are a few older actresses that are fabulous, but there are a lot that end up having nips, tucks, and all of that kind of stuff done. And, people do start to feel, and this is so true, someone said to me, I've turned 50, I feel invisible.
Wow.
My experience of 50, and I was 50 last year, is very different. I am not invisible, and I am not going to be invisible. And that's not got anything to do with my hair or anything like that. It's to do with being who I am. And I am on a mission to make other women feel as good as I do. And my biggest thing last year, and I know it's so funny when I asked you this morning, was it going to be warm in here? Because I was worried you were thinking I was going to turn up in it, and I didn't.
That's the first thing I said to my wife. I said, Bee's asked if it's warm. I said, I think she's going to be sitting opposite me wearing it.
That's not what it's about. So I will explain now. I knew you would think that. It was so funny. It was actually because I wanted to wear a bright coloured dress. It was
honestly, as soon as you said it, I said, I better put the heating on.
So last year, my whole thing about my health is getting a better relationship with food, okay, which I'm still working on. As I said, it takes a long time to undo the mentality, okay? Yeah. And every sort of like little niggle and doubt I have sends me back to that place, so I have to bring myself out of it again, which I do all the time now. But the other thing is like exercise. So I do have some issues with bones at the moment, like with my tendons actually at the moment. But I want to exercise, but I can't do, I don't enjoy, okay, normal exercise, what everybody classes normal, running, and that kind of stuff. It's not for me, okay? It's just not my bag. It's not where I see myself. I love Pilates, I love yoga, but I don't see myself in that bit. And I needed something that got my heart going. And I love dancing. And I looked at different options. And then one day, last summer, it was late spring. I walked into my first ever burlesque class on my own. And I was petrified.
Yeah,
I was absolutely petrified. And I just said, come on, you can do this. Come on, you can do this. And I'd seen them perform probably about 5 years earlier. So I knew they were all sort of different body shapes and stuff, but there was a lot of sort of younger ones at that point. And so I was like, just do it. It says it's for all shapes, all ages and all sizes. And you know what? I had the best time of my life. I came out on the biggest high. I couldn't sleep that night. I just wanted to carry on dancing. And yeah, I haven't looked back. I really haven't looked back. I have had to have a break because I had a little operation that I wasn't allowed to dance. So, and then I had Achilles tendon issue. But I've been there all the time that I can go. It's like 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. And you know that thing is, once you get home, I don't want to go out again. I don't ever feel like that. As soon as I start putting my clothes on, and we don't wear that outfit every week, trust me. Sorry to disappoint everyone, but I don't wear a basque every week. I do wear fishnet tight shorts. I do wear all of that every week, but we wear sort of more informal tops. But when we perform, yeah, absolutely. And it is not about, people see it as a slutty thing. It is so not.
It's really not. We went to a burlesque show up in London in Soho. It was literally just a few months ago. It was absolutely brilliant.
It
is really good. It's not slutty, sleazy or nothing. It is so entertaining.
It is. And it's so empowering from my perspective. Oh my God, it's just like amazing. And we are all ages, all shapes, all sizes. And there is never, and we wear all sorts of weird and wonderful things as well. And nobody ever, there's just none of that goes on. It's just an amazing group of girls, women. And we have so much fun. We're not professional dancers.
Have you all got a lot in common, like similar backgrounds?
No.
No.
Oh God, no!
All different types of people.
No, all different types of people. No, definitely not. I mean, and we go right from, I don't know, maybe Callie's the youngest. There's a few in the group, but literally 20s, right up to 60s. So yeah, I think that's it. And obviously, what we do is we do burlesque dancing. We learn routines. We learn 8-week routines. We perform at the end in our own hall, and then we do cabaret 3 times a year. That's in front of, so tickets can be bought by anybody, and that's in front of other burlesque troupes, because we love you burlesque, which is all over Essex, Suffolk and Herts. And so we all perform in one big hall, and we all do different dances, and it's amazing. It's a hall full of fabulous women.
Amazing.
And you can do other stuff. You can learn other workshops, nipple tassel workshop, which everybody laughs at. And they will perform as well. They do perform. And it's just fun. It's nothing else. It is just pure fun. And I'd highly recommend it to anybody.
That's
if you're
amazing.
going on a coaching journey, if you've started a journey on your body, oh my God, anything like that. I mean, I'd love to have had a go at pole dancing, but because of my issues with some it's too much for me. But this just gives me everything I want. And it's at any level as well. So if you can't do one bit, she'll show you how you can do something else. So you look equally. And it's all about, our teacher is called Ruby Blue, and she always tells us to be obnoxiously fabulous. And it is. So it's that. And then, as I say, I trained to be a coach last year. I'm in the process of launching the business fully. I'm already coaching. And God, I love it. I love making women feel great about themselves.
You know what? This is what I love about my podcast as well is, you know, your whole journey has just led you to today. Yeah. What an incredible journey that has been. Reflecting on it and looking back on it now, you know, all that shit you've had to go through has brought you to being a decent coach, at home with the way you look, and really, from what I can see, quite content at the moment.
God, I'm at my happiest I've ever been in my whole life. You know, I really, really am. I've been married for 20 years this year. I absolutely adore my husband.
Amazing.
And we don't have children. I have stepchildren. My dad's really poorly at the moment. He really is. And I take time out to care for him. And I do that because I know how precious time is. You know, I lost my sister way too young. We talked about getting old together. That's not going to happen. I have my other sister who is beautiful and lovely. It's tough because she lives in Scotland sometimes. It's tough for her as well. My mum lives in Spain. So, you know, but I'm so lucky. I am so, so lucky. I'm so lucky to be doing things that I love. I'm lucky to have the life I've got. And like I said, when people go, oh God, well, happens to me, doesn't it? No, it happens for you. You just have to tune in to what's happening for you and work out where that's going to lead you.
It is true. It is true. And mate, I'm so grateful that I've learnt about you today, and that I didn't push you too hard on the first time we met, because I would never have known none of this. You know, so I can't thank you enough for it.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been fabulous, and yeah, this is my calling. This is what I was born to do.
Good luck with everything, B. Honestly, I love it. And keep up with the dancing and everything. I love all the posts that you put up. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that episode. So now I just want to say a quick thank you to Green Oak Concept and Design for sponsoring our show. If you don't know who they are or what they do, please look them up. But they're specialists in doors, windows and conservatories. Not only are they specialists in it, but they're also really good at saving you money, because there's a lot of heat that gets thrown out of a house through conservatory roofs. They now specialise in putting brand new roofs on your conservatory to really retain the heat in your house and help you with them bills at the moment. So like I say, that's Green Oak Concept and Design. Please look them up. And again, a massive thank you for sponsoring the show.